Duke football has a new coach. His name's Manny Diaz. I know there's a little bit of a sour taste in Duke fans' mouths, the way that Mike Elko may have left the situation, perhaps leaving maybe in the middle of the night on a plane. Uh, However, I don't think Manny Diaz is any sort of slouch. All right. I think this was a pretty decent hire. We're gonna have to see though if this and now we were saying this when Mike Elko came in the building, right? Like we're gonna have to see. Maybe it's not year one, maybe it's not year two. And then Mike Elko just like did it, year one. But I think the pieces were already there, right? And I feel like this Duke team sort of got maybe a little bit rated completely in their roster. I still think they have some good pieces, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, which I don't think
Yeah.
we've been able to see necessarily these last couple of years. This is a wait and see game for me for sure. Although it's not a wait and see for me in terms of betting something, including Duke, which we may get
We'll
to a
save till
little
the
bit.
end. We'll save.
We'll save that one for the end, but in general, let's just start I guess on the offensive side of the ball because that's what we do on this show. Uh, Malik Murphy comes into the building, coming over from Texas, and I somehow think that he's simultaneously underrated, but also I'm going to be very cautious about rating Malik Murphy as higher tier quarterback. I know Malik Murphy went to a spot, and actually today, as we're recording this on August 19th, they just announced a starter. So it made our jobs a lot easier. Instead of talking about this battle that was potentially going on between him and Grayson Loftus. By the way, I think Grayson Loftus did really well in his true freshman year. Well, sorry. Let me rephrase that. I think Grayson Loftus was not good his true freshman year. However, I think he was put in a very bad situation. I think he made the most of it. I think he proved to the staff um, and everyone that, maybe this guy has a chance to play really good football down the road.
Yeah.
However, Malik Murphy is the upside play here. He is an effective thrower of the football. He's big. He can move a little bit. I don't know if that's necessarily the strong suit of his game, but I think Malik Murphy might be a little bit not talked about enough, but also I'm cautious to say that he's going to be uh I don't think he'll be an upgrade over Riley Leonard. Okay. I don't think that will be the case.
Not in year one. And I do think Riley Leonard had a special ability to elevate guys with his legs, his pocket mobility. That's not something I've seen yet from Malik Murphy. That doesn't mean he doesn't have it in him, but Leonard was so good at that. And also, it does concern me how long it took him to win the job. And I don't know, I don't read too much into that because I do know that Manny Diaz probably wanted to keep Loftus around, probably wanted to keep Murphy engaged as well, and also wait for his team to kind of choose and realize that, yeah, Malik Murphy gives us the best chance to win. Regardless, though, yeah, he should be the starter. I'm glad he won it because I do think he gives this team the most amount of upside in terms of what they can do in year one under Manny Diaz, but I think they're gonna have an identity, right? So Jonathan Brewer comes in, runs that power spread scheme, right? An up tempo offense with that, SMU Rhett Lashley influence, right? So we'll see how Murphy kind of fits into that. But I do think you've got some pieces you mentioned where we kind of like the weapons on this team, even though some other spots maybe
Maybe
lackluster on
not
this
as
this
it might not be
roster.
as deep, but I think at the top end, if these starters stay healthy at the skill positions, I think
There's some fun
that Malik
ones.
Murphy will have some people to distribute the football to. I mean, let's start though in the running back room. Jacquez Moore, whatever you want to say about Jordan Waters, Jacquez Moore was better. All right,
Yeah.
in just about every way, and it was a shock to me. Every week I thought Jacquez Moore was just getting inches closer and closer to just completely taking that role, and just never did. Jordan Waters, I guess, kind of stole it, kept him at bay. And when Jacquez Moore entered the transfer portal, I was like, oh no. Oh no. I know Jordan Waters left, but I'm like, okay, now you have Jacquez Moore. He was transferred. I'm like,
Fine.
oh
Addition
no.
by yeah.
Oh no. Oh no. It just means oh no. Then he comes back, right? And that is a huge addition because one, this running back room would have been absolutely devastated, right? Not only did you get Jacquez Moore, you also got Star Thomas in the transfer portal as well. Both of those guys, um, I think have been proven to be very good football players. I think as a 1-2 punch, I think they can do slightly different things. I really believe in Jacquez Moore's ceiling higher than I believe in Star Thomas's, but he's a good second running back to have, right? Always have, a pair, and you say a spare. I don't know if I'm seeing, the spare on this in this running back room, but I think there is some optimism that there are some guys in this room that can also take on carries, right? Because running back is, a pretty replaceable position for the most part. But I do think this offense is going to operate through a couple people, and one of those people is Jacquez Moore, 1 billion%.
We love him, and I do think we were doing our running back fantasy show and or our fantasy draft, I guess, between Matthew and I. And like the day of, we were recording, Star Thomas committed, and I had Jacquez Moore circled as one of the guys that I had to walk away from that draft with because I
Me
saw the
too.
upside there
Me
with
too.
what he was going to be able to do. And Star Thomas comes in, he's going to eat too many carries, which is a good thing, and it's a good thing for the depth, right, of this overall team, especially if Jacquez Moore, if you're leaning on that running attack a good amount. But you also got Al Wooten in there, right? Him and Peyton Jones. I think those are solid depth pieces. You mentioned how they're kind of, not quite up to standard with Moore and Thomas. I think there's a drop off with Moore to Thomas, and then to Thomas, to that third string, whoever it may be, which is fine. That's kind of how it works, right? Where your starters are better than your second string, and your second string is better than your third string. So it is what it is, and especially in year one. I'm not too worried about this room. We talked about it with Moore and Thomas. Plenty good, and then some to get a lot done in the ACC. The wide receiver core is interesting. I mean, Jordan Moore's. I feel like he's been there for a while now. He's still there, which is awesome. He's looking good in practice. I'm sorry, with Murphy and Loftus. It's nice to see Javon Harvey looking good coming from Old Dominion, a guy that played so well last year, I thought at times, in just only 8 games, right? I think he was hurt for a little bit. Good to see him back and healthy. We'll see how Samir Higgins, continues to develop. Eli Pancol, is he going to compete? Right? He's a guy, don't see a ton from, but he's coming along. It sounds like he's looking good. And then Chase Tyler, a young true freshman, is he ready to play? It sounds like he's making plays, but how much can he give you this year? Does it really matter? Does it just provide more depth for you? Regardless, so especially with those top 2.5 guys, I think you feel pretty good with what you can do with Murphy and Loftus and what Brewer can scheme up for him.
Yeah, I do too. I think this wide receiver room, those, top four and top five guys, I think are pretty solid. Jordan Moore being, exceptional. I think Javon Harvey has a really high ceiling. A guy who was highly sought after in the transfer portal. I agree with everything that you said about the wide receiver room. In the tight end room, I don't really think you have anything there that's worth oogling and boogling over, right? Just it's whatever, right? I mean, and like you talk about in the tight end room, like if there's a weak spot you're gonna have on the team, have it in the tight end room, and if you get replacement level, great. If you get more than that, it's all gravy, right? I mean,
Amen to that. Hopefully, can you block, right? Can you help establish a running game with Moore and Thomas, and then catch the ball when you're thrown to, right? It's kind of that simple at tight end position. It's a tough position, obviously, and you hate to be, maybe thin there, but it sounds like there's a ton of guys that are just kind of on the similar playing field. So I guess we'll see how the reps shake out, but at least you're keeping guys healthy potentially and fresh. And if guys do go down, it sounds like you have guys that are very similar to do those roles and fill in. And you have to change too much of your offense once if that does happen.
well, speaking about a group that has to stay healthy, otherwise we could see, I mean, one of these groups completely fall apart. And we're going to be talking about the offensive line group. This group is, you were not returning a single starter from last year. Okay. And yeah, I don't feel good about any position. I don't feel good about the depth. I'm I think this is probably the worst offensive line group in the ACC.
And that's concerning. And not only is it bad at the starters potentially, but it's also there. Yeah, I guess. Well, here's what I'll say. So you bring in what, like 6 transfers, right? You got,
Sorry, I
you
feel
got
good about
kid
Brian
from
Parker, by the way. And
Oh yeah,
people are
hey,
gonna
he's a
shop.
good
People aren't
player.
gonna come after me for that. I feel good about Brian Parker. All right.
Well, yeah,
Sorry.
and you got Pickett and Craig Half who are returning, I think, and they'll probably start somewhere along the line and at least give you some kind of continuity from last year. But so Lafayette, Holy Cross, Northwestern, Penn, Stanford, and then maybe the worst Power Four offensive lineman last year from UCLA. We'll see if he puts together this new staff. I'm not too optimistic. If you are relying upon him at left tackle, that's probably not ideal
You
for Malik
really hope you
Murphy.
aren't. Because what are the reports, right? Weren't you reading something and you told me you were like, oh yeah, they feel good about him in the practice
Yeah, I
reports?
think that, which I guess would be amazing. And now
Hmm.
I hope I'm wrong. I
But
hope I'm
let
wrong.
me, can I just say this as someone who's been at those like spring practices, like for a college football team, like you're not getting to see like anything for the offensive line. There's hardly been any install. Chances are you're not going to get to see one-on-ones. You're not going to see full pads. Like you see something, if you hear something good about the offensive line in the spring, right? Now, spring games are a little bit different. You get to see more kind of live reps, and every program is a little bit different, right? Some are going to let media see more, some are going to see let media see less. I don't take a ton of stock saying that a guy who was one of the worst Power Five offensive linemen last year. I don't take a ton of stock in saying in someone in their practice report saying, "Oh yeah, he looks like really good right now." Like sometimes guys are just 6'6" and 320 pounds, and yeah, sure they look good because you're
Doing
standing right in
cardio.
front of them. Yeah, doing a lot of cardio out there on their practice field. I'm just saying, like, just be careful with that if you're reading practice reports about offensive lines and stuff. Just be wary of that. Okay, I'm going to encourage you to not count on Bruno Fina being a good player for this Duke team this year. In fact, if he's playing, it is a gigantic concern, I think.
Yeah, I think that's enough about the O line. I think we know it could be an area of concern. We'll see what Brewer can do to kind of mitigate it.
Seven
But
transfers. That's how you know it's so bad. Good,
it's tough.
good God.
And
Um,
listen. By the way, Duke's also a spot, and we got to mention this is where it's really tough to fix things to the portal. First of all, the O line is tough to fix to the portal in general,
it's
right?
impossible.
And yeah, it's a borderline impossible. And Duke is the program too, where you mention those names. It's like, oh, UCLA, it's Holy Cross, it is Northwestern, it's Penn, it's Stanford, right? You're getting a kind of a common theme of where they can pick from just because of the way that their program and their academics are. And so it is tough. But moving on to that defense, though, listen, you lose Mike Elko, but you bring in Manny Diaz. Manny Diaz was a very good defense coordinator for Miami back in the day in the ACC, and then also for Penn State. He did some really good things there, and what he did, especially getting after the quarterback. So you lose a lot though on the D line. So RJ Oben gone to Notre Dame, and Ice Pebbles gone to Virginia Tech. Probably one of the more underrated transfer portal exits
And these Pebbles
in
is
all of
so
college
good.
football. Yeah, and then Dwayne Carter and Jamon Franklin, they're also gone as well. So you bring in some guys, right? Kennedy Charles, Will Sellier from Liberty and Penn, respectively. Try to mitigate that the kind of loss a little bit. Get some big veteran bodies in there who have played a good amount of football. Good, like that. And Aaron Hall is also returning in the interior. Even though you're losing three guys, I think you still have three guys that you feel okay about. You know, excuse me, okay about playing if you have to, because you do have to.
It was the definite need though in the interior, right? And what do I say? Like places you don't want to be needing in the transfer portal, right? Interior defensive line, right, and offensive line. And, to some degree, secondary kind of, but I would say I don't know if Kenny Charles and Will Saylor are gonna give you exactly what was they might give you like replacement level, player, but they're not gonna replace what was lost by any
It's going to be
stretch
a
of the
drop off.
imagination.
Yeah.
Mike Gelko
But
had a crazy talented defense last year, and I don't think it's talked about enough. Like they had a nutty talented defense last year, and they had injuries in the secondary, and it's still or so they had some injuries in the secondary, I should say, and they were still good and effective. I don't I'm not very high on this defensive line. I think there's just too much loss there. Um,
The edge group, listen, the edge group, I know, Wesley Williams comes back and he's one of the better players, I think, on that football team, 6'3". He's still improving, right? But he graded out okay last year, and more is going to be asked upon him this year, right? To be maybe that leader of that group. But Ryan Smith's another year in the program. Vincent Anthony's in that program. Michael Reese as well. Kevin O'Connor, the staff likes, right? A younger kid. Um, we'll see. The year-to-year development at a program like Duke is so important, especially along the trenches, where you would love to be old at and experienced. And sometimes it's not always experience. It's more about guys that have been in the program for multiple years, kind of gotten their feet wet here and there. And then they have to, when more is asked upon them, they have to really be able to step up. So it's a little bit more remains to be seen, especially along that front. But I guess if there is, I'm more concerned about the interior guys relying on some transfers than, Wesley Williams. And, at least there's some kind of floor, I think, with him and Ryan Smith and Anthony's been in the program for a little bit now. Even though it's new coaching staff, they've been at the Duke for a while. They understand what's expected of them.
this linebacker group, I feel a lot better about, right? Because you have guys that are experienced, that are returning, and you also add, I mean, like you can talk about Ozzie Nicholas from Princeton,
Oh yeah.
but I want to highlight Alex Howard because he did originally commit to Texas A&M. He's played some pretty high level football. Actually, his best game probably at Youngstown State last year was against Ohio State. Alex Howard's a guy who's really fast. He can get to the football really quickly. I think he just didn't see Pat the playing time at Texas A&M. That's why he got out of there. Don't think that Alex Howard is a bad player at all. I think Alex Howard, if he is a depth piece, um, on this in this linebacker core, then I think it's a pretty solid linebacker. I think that's a plus. I think that's a plus. And who knows? Alex Howard could find his way. I think that's a sneaky guy that, I was high on originally, but I just don't think he could find his way onto the field, given that there was a lot more size, speed, athleticism in that linebacker room at Texas A&M that he just couldn't get past.
Now I'm with you there. You have Freeman and Moore's great returning duo, a very good returning duo, and then you got the couple transfers sprinkled here and there. Some young guys like Isaac Nicholas. Um, I'm sorry, Kendall Johnson, excuse me. To be kind of sprinkling in, getting more better, providing good depth. It's a nice room. It's definitely a nice room. It's something you can feel good about. A nice place to not have a weakness on for sure, because we've seen teams where they have gotten picked apart because of the bad linebacker play, and that's not going to happen here this year for Duke. In that secondary, you mentioned the talent that was on this team last year, and that secondary was talented. It was talented. It battered some
With an
injuries.
injury to with an injury to a guy like Miles Jones, who was playing fantastic football the first 4 games of the season.
Yeah, and so definitely got some portal exits, right? Brandon Johnson goes to Oregon. But Chandler Rivers, man, he's back. He is really good. It's been good for a while now. I know Texas A&M fans were excited that potentially that he would follow Mike Elko, but I know Duke fans, they deserve it, man. You get Rivers back, you get Stinson back, Terry Moore, Joshua Pickett, right? He's a guy that's kind of getting there. It sounds like in year 4, he's putting it together, which is nice with this new staff. How do you feel about this room?
Yeah, I feel pretty good about it. I mean, with loss, right, comes if you have a degree to loss, right, you lose guys like Al Blade, Brennan Johnson, like you are gonna have some degree of having to project guys. And I do think that there is experience in this room. I think there's some high level talent in this room, but you're still gonna be kind of banking on, one or two guys having to step up in that role and play good football. And I'll say this. Manny Diaz, okay, you Duke fans, you're gonna live and die by the Manny Diaz defense, all right? He's gonna get aggressive, okay? Here's what you have to have though. You have to have really good talent if you're gonna get aggressive, right? Now, I mean, if you're gonna get really aggressive and you're a really talented team, right, you can finish as a top 10 defense. If you're gonna get really aggressive and you're not gonna have the talent that can, execute your aggression, there's a chance that the floor can fall underneath you. However, I do think that the secondary on the back end, especially at the cornerback spot, I think it potentially is good enough to where you can get aggressive with that front seven because you might have to because you might not be able to get to the quarterback the way that you did last year, right? You might not be able to stop the run in the interior like you were able to last year with Aeneas Peebles, Dwayne Carter. So I do like the secondary. I like it. I'm still a little bit concerned about the defense in general and how they're going to be able to adapt to Manny Diaz's system and whether or not the aggression is going to pay off. Because sometimes, you turn up the aggression on the meter, right? And all of a sudden you're forcing turnovers, right? You're putting your offense, which, with that offensive line, may need some help getting the ball down the field and getting put in good field positions. I don't see a ton of depth in this defensive back room beyond, those 6 guys that I'm kind of looking at right now. So, look, he had an injury to Miles Jones last year. Now, look, death taxes and an injury to Miles Jones. All right, now that's just what it is. I still think, like, at all these position groups, except maybe linebacker on the defensive side, I think you're still lacking a little bit of depth. So I'm worried about the depth on both lines of scrimmage. To some degree on the defensive line, I think it could be decent. And then I'm worried about some of the depth in the secondary. I still think the top end talent is there, and it could be really good if you stay healthy. If this Duke team stays healthy, they can make a bowl game. All right, they can make a bowl game. But we can talk about their schedule, unless you had one other thing you wanted to mention for the secondary. So
No, feel pretty good.
their over win total is 5.5, and I'm gonna rip the band-aid off. Okay, I took the under, and I didn't just take the under, for the show, right? I mean, I took the under, right? And you can't get it at the number that I got it at, right? But it's at 5.5, right? And you can take it, right? At like minus like 175, 180, all right? I'm sorry that I didn't get the number out to you sooner, right? I didn't know that this was going to be, you know, bet down super hard. This line opened, by the way, at 6.5. That's pretty nuts to me. That line opened at 6.5. I didn't get it at the best number. I wish I'd gotten at the best number. I'm glad that I got it at a better number though. When I look at the schedule, you do see a lot of traditionally winnable games. I mean, you're out of conferences. Elon at Northwestern, Connecticut, Middle Tennessee. You're like, Matthew, why are you taking the under? One, the Northwestern game is on the road. I don't think that they win that game. All right. Sure, the other 3 out of conference games, you go 3-1. All right. UNC at home. Still like UNC in that game. They're more talented. Georgia Tech on the road. You get a bye week 7. FSU at home week 8. You're not winning that game. SMU at home. It's good you get that game at home, but I don't think you're winning that game. Miami on the road. NC State on the road. I don't think you're winning that game. Week 12, you have a bye. Virginia Tech at home. And then you get your most winnable game in the ACC in the end of the year when attrition and depth could rear its sore, ugly head or sore, ugly
On the
thumb,
road.
however that, on the road, right? I don't see them making a bowl game. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It would be, I think, really impressive if Manny Diaz was able to, and no, I've said this before, famously last year, pounded the Northwestern under at like 3.5, and they won 8 games. So, look, so Duke fans, you can just
Hopefully you're right.
You can bookmark this all you want. And honestly, I won't care if they do go over. I hope they do, man. I thought it was a pretty terrible situation that y'all were put in. This team was in complete rebuild mode after the way Mike Elko left it. I thought Manny Diaz was a good hire. I think Malik Murphy was a good get. I think he was a good get. It was unfortunate that the quarterback decommitted 4-star who I forget.
Cherry.
Cherry, yeah, Chow Cherry.
Cherry.
It's unfortunate that he decommitted as well. I just, it's not this year. Okay, let's give it a wait. Okay, let's just give it away. Get through the season, enjoy it, right? Enjoy those first 4 weeks. When you have a winning record, it's gonna be awesome. Okay, and then season ticket holders, I'm sorry, you might not win a single game in the ACC this year at
Well,
home.
listen here. Listen here. North Carolina, I think week 5. First of all, Duke, North Carolina, anything can happen that day. And same goes for Wake Forest, week 14. With all that being said, I'm with you too. I'm on the under as well. I'm not quite as good price as you got it, but I might even I might soak up all that juice. I might even do that. It's tough.
It might
It's
still
really
be
tough.
going down. That number still might be going down. So if you get it, it still probably won't be the worst number that you can get it at.
A lot of it has to do with schedule dynamics and the attrition, the depth, like you said. Um, we'll see. But I do like what Manny Diaz is doing as a program. I do think Duke, by the way, every coach that's been here has won football games within the last, decade or so, decade and a half. And I know it's two coaches, right? But again, there's been success, there's been sustained success, multiple different eras. So I do think Duke's in a position where they can absolutely succeed with Manny Diaz. It just might not be this year, but that's all right. It's a rebuilding year. But also, we said that about Mike Elko, year one. We said we're like, yeah, this Duke team is not very good. I don't see it. And then all of a sudden, boom, they were winning 7, 8 games, and they were, the talk of the town. So we'll see. I hope I'm wrong, but yeah, I'll go the under on Duke.